Hello, everyone. We are coming at you with episode 103 today of the Vacation Rental Blueprint. I am Tim, and joined with me, as usual, is my faithful co-host, TC. TC, how's it going?
Good. How's everybody doing out there?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this podcast today. It's going to be a good one.
So episode 103, and we're learning as we go. We may have committed the cardinal sin of podcast hosting in that you and I just spent an hour and a half in the car together having a great conversation, and we did not record a minute of it. So this is going to be fun. We'll just have that same conversation because what we're talking about today is what we are talking about in the car, and excited to get into it with you because we're talking about vendors and vendor relationships. It's a big piece of the puzzle when you're trying to self-manage. And TC, I know that you and I think this is one of your many strengths is your ability to manage those vendors and set those vendor relationships up. So it's going to be a good topic today.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to take away a lot from this. And it really does come down to we've all got to build our village. We've got to build our teams to support the short term rental business. Most of us manage these from afar and we rely on the team. So building that team's critical.
So let's kind of take a step back because when you were first getting into this and you started to, create that list of vendors, kind of walk me through that first round of vendors. And then from there, I think we can really dig into what we've learned along the way, because I know we've learned a lot and have added a lot of vendors along the way.
Well, the first one that we really had to find was the cleaning team. That is the heart and soul of this business, making sure the property is clean, looking great, and ready for the guest when they check in. So finding that cleaning team, as you remember, we went through 2 or 3 interviews. We went through multiple, trial and errors to identify the team. Once we found that team, that was a big sigh of relief. They carry a lot of the workflow between guests. So first and foremost, got to find that cleaning team that's going to do a great job in the limited amount of time they have. And we'll probably dedicate a podcast to this topic in the future. So key.
Yeah, with the cleaning companies, and I think this probably goes to all of the vendors we're going to talk about today. You get what you pay for, and I do believe that when you're managing your financials, this is not where you want to value shop for a cleaning company. I mean, you really don't want to value shop with any of your vendors. To your point, a lot of these vendors are going to be taking care of your property for you as you self-manage, maybe from afar. Maybe you're in a different state and you've got a property or two in Central Florida. You've got to really find the right vendor and be ready to pay for that service because there's a lot of cleaners out there that will beat the top performing cleaning companies on price, and they'll lean on that heavily. And like you said, we'll go on. We'll do a solid hour, if not more, on cleaning companies because it's something we believe is the core to a successful vacation rental, especially one with frequent guests. But you really got to model out not value shopping that vendor.
Well, and one of the biggest mistakes and one of the key learnings we had is a cleaning team is only going to spend 3 to 4 hours in your home. I mean, that's what you're paying for.
And
A
one or two
turnover
people, right?
Yeah, exactly. You've got 3 or 4 hours of their time based on the price we're paying, and the expectation I had is for the price I was paying, they were going to spend whatever time it took to make the house look spectacular. Just not the reality. You get 3 to 4 hours, so you're looking for that team that can really prepare and present the house to the guest with that 3 or 4 hour window, probably a couple people in there. So as you're looking for your cleaning team, lots of questions will guide you to ask. But again, we'll get into that in a future episode.
Right. And coming from the hotel side of things, I was very used to you've got one or two members of a housekeeping team working a floor, but that individual is in that room potentially every day, maintaining. And then on top of that, they have one room and one bathroom to clean more times than not. And when you're comparing that to a 5-bedroom, 4-bath house with full laundry and the laundry on site, it's definitely a different experience and set of expectations. Now, you can build strong expectations, but again, that just goes back to you really want to spend the time on your cleaning company and find the right one that you feel best working with.
And as we get deeper into building that support team, so creating that village that will support you when you're managing from afar, which once again we encourage folks to do, put more money in your pocket. But it all started with we were very fortunate to find an outstanding designer that could transform our home. And then what we all have to do as owners is just start talking to people. So our designer, Tammy, hopefully we'll have her on a future episode as well. Asking her, Tammy, who do you use for a plumber? Who do you use for an electrician? So start with just using your resources. Then I started reaching out to those vendors and putting them together. So let's go through a short list of vendors
Great.
that we identified. First, we've got a pool at our home. So we had to find someone that could clean our pool. Now, note to everybody, don't base the amount of cleanings per week on what you hear from others. Base it on the size of your home and the number of guests you have staying. If you have a large home with lots of guests, you need more than once a week cleaning. Otherwise, you will start to get algae and build up in your pool. So, pool cleaner number one. We've gone through three or four. You've got to be ready for those types of changes when a service doesn't support you accordingly. So, number one was pool cleaner. Secondly, we had to have an HVAC company because if you're in the warm climates or the cold climates, you're going to need someone to take care of your heater and or your air conditioning. And it's not just repairs. We all have to think about these properties as we do our homes. You've got to do preventative maintenance throughout the year as well. So who's that vendor that's going to come out twice a year to maintain and do some preventative maintenance on your HVAC system? Plumbers, you've got to have that plumber who's going to come in annually to, drain your hot water heater should you have one. And once you have them for preventative maintenance, they're going to be your go-to for repairs. So you need to make sure that companies you pick have 24/7 operations. So, you know, plumbers, HVAC, pool company, that was the beginning of building our core team. We'll go more into it, but that was the core right there.
And with those three vendors, what should someone expect in terms of follow up and communication? I mean, I think of the number of times I talk to the pool company, it's probably more than people expect. I hear from the pool company fairly regularly, but I've set those expectations. When you're bringing on a plumber and when you're bringing on an HVAC, probably more so than a pool company. But what should that recap look like for someone doing a preventative maintenance visit? What do you get from your HVAC company and plumbing company? So you might be at a far at a distance, but you have a firm grasp on what's going on.
Yeah, first I wanted to find vendors that provided 24/7 service because you never know when a guest is going to have an issue. You've got to have 24/7 service. I then started with vendors that installed the equipment in the home. So I reached out to the HVAC company that installed the system in the home. Always good to start there because, putting the person accountable for the one that installed it, good way to go. And then you go through your laundry list of what am I going to get for my twice a year preventative maintenance? And what's my response time going to be if I call you with an after hours issue? What are my charges going to be during hours and after hours? So these are the questions that you just want to be prepared for, and it helps you narrow down your selection. With pool company, I specifically asked them to send me photographs at the end of each cleaning with a recap of what they did. What chemicals did you add? The pictures demonstrate to me that the pool is clean and that the water level is at the right level. So most pool companies very responsive to that, and if they're not, go to your next one. Keep looking. And, it's a situation, Tim, where if your pool company fails you and you've got to find another one, it's not panic time.
Right.
Just use Google, find another pool cleaning company in the area. You may have to go through two or three pool companies to find a good one, but you'll eventually find one that will support you nicely. If you're in the colder climates, you've got to find that snow removal company. not just for removing the snow, but who also is going to stop by and put down some de-icer to prevent slip and falls in the driveways.
Yeah, and with the pool cleaning company specifically, there's going to be times where they're sending you a recap and saying, "Hey, the pool water was a little low." I went ahead and added. I know we've both added the timers on the hoses to be able to add water, in a controlled way so that we're not overfilling. But it's that high level communication that you set up with your vendors that they almost expect it, right? So you're not having to follow up on, hey, how was the pool level? They know to include those pieces in their recap to you. It's not just, hey, all was good. It was, hey, everything looked good. The pool level was good. The water level was good in the pool. All systems are functioning appropriately. And, I think that constant communication back and forth, you really want to set that expectation with your vendors up at the beginning. Hey, you guys are going to hear from me a lot. Sometimes just checking in on my property, but you're really establishing that when it's 24/7 and it's the middle of the night and you're making a call, that will pay off with a vendor because they're going to get it done. They're going to reach out. They're going to follow up with you. They're going to make sure you're taken care of because they know you're a communicative client and someone who you're selecting them more than they're choosing to work for you as an owner. So it's very important to leverage and build those relationships. Uh, you had to navigate a hurricane from afar. I mean, that's quite a task with a vacation rental property here in Central Florida. And this, I remember it well. The storm just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you had built relationships with all of your vendors to be at the ready. And I, we were very fortunate. There were no issues at our properties that weren't quickly repairable. But I do think that you had set up some expectations for people to be ready for your call. So I'd love to hear kind of you talk about those conversations you had leading up to a big storm or a big event or something to keep in mind. Because like you mentioned in Colorado, there's forest fires, there's big snowstorms, but you're kind of always preparing your vendor to be ready to help for an unforeseen issue, right?
Yeah, and in some cases, like with the hurricane, I didn't necessarily think about, pool screen enclosures and replacing those screens. It's nothing I thought I'd ever have to do. So when the hurricane was forecasted, I reached out to the pool company and I simply was asking them, okay, these are the things that could go wrong. If there's flooding, it could damage my pool equipment, it could damage the pool heater. If there's high winds or trees falling, I could have screen enclosure issues, so I need screen repair. Who would you recommend? So again, it goes back to use your resources. The pool company is going to know other types of vendors because they're in the industry. I'm going to do some cold calls via a Google search, but they're going to be able to refer folks that they've had good working relationships with the past. And, we use those relationships, we leverage them. They provided some great vendors to use. As you know, we had some screen damage that we had to take care of, but it's really using your resources, and it's these unforeseen situations like a hurricane that force you to think about issues you might not think about otherwise.
Well, and you had also set them up for some visits right after the storm, and I think that's remaining cognizant of the fact that each vendor in that area is going to be just inundated with phone calls coming out of an event like that. But you did the work ahead of time. You had that conversation before. I mean, it was still beautiful here, and we were making calls to pool companies and roofing companies and companies that did screen door and patio repair, just to make sure we were at the top of that list coming out of the storm, knowing that we didn't know a whole lot. We knew we really don't know. We could lose a bunch of shingles. We may not. But let's go ahead and have that conversation with the roofing company now so that we are first on the call list, first on the deployment list, which there's real power when you think about every day you have to take your home offline for damages like that is lost revenue. And hey, the mortgage is still due. And there's a lot of a lot of those conversations to set up post visit can be done before any event through strong communication.
Yeah, and as you'll remember, when we heard the storm was a potential, it was probably still a week out. We did some research to find good roofing companies.
Yep.
And while the house was new, we're not going to need a roof anytime in the near future. We still set up an appointment for an inspection 2 days after the storm was supposed to have come and gone. And for that reason, we were first on the list. So there's a
Exactly.
proactive nature to this as owners. And I wouldn't want any listener to think, oh my gosh, this is too much. I just don't want to manage it. It's no different than your primary home.
Exactly.
If you've got a storm coming, there's going to be things and phone calls that you make sure your house is secure. It's the same thing here. It's building relationships, it's leveraging your resources, it's having some phone calls, but think about how much more money you'll put in your pocket by just doing some of this self-management, making some phone calls, building the relationships in your team. It goes a long way. Tim, if you think about kind of that tier two series of vendors that we needed. One was pest control. You've got to have regular pest control, probably even more often than you have in your primary residence because you're going to have guests coming and going. And whether we like it or not, they're going to leave food out from time to time. So we have once a month pest control. We have them do inside and outside the home. And then because of where we are, we have to have termite protection as well. So pest control, something to be aware of. It's one of those things that you just can't let it get out of control because when it does, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So pest control, make sure you find good pest control companies. We went through a couple. Before we found one that we were really happy with. And you'll remember when the hurricane was coming, when the water table starts to rise, that causes a lot of critters to come up. So we asked the pest control company a week before the storm to make a visit to the home right after the storm and take care of any issues they see. So it's being proactive, it's building your team, and don't be passive. You've got to actively manage the team by staying in contact. And when you're no longer happy, you're the client. Make a change
Yeah.
and get a vendor out there that's going to support you.
And this goes back to, I think we talked about it. We talk about it in every episode. This is a business you're running, and what we're talking about here is managing vendors and managing relationships. That's any business you're going to run. That's not outside the normal range. And I think how those relationships pay off. Going back to our first foray into a hurricane. I still remember it very vividly. You and I were talking on the phone. I was sort of boots on the ground here, telling you what I was seeing and hearing. And we're talking. We just had a conversation about insurance, and we sort of got to the point where we were asking ourselves, okay, well, what do we do if there's damage? Oh, we probably need pictures time stamped of the property before the storm. Oh my goodness. Oops. Storms coming. We got to figure this out. And what do? We leveraged a relationship. We had a cleaning company that we worked with that was in the area of our homes, and they ran over and took time stamped pictures for us. And again, that was we leveraged that relationship. We have a great relationship with our cleaning company that we were using. And we said, okay, here's an opportunity. It's going to be tough to file an insurance claim when everyone is filing an insurance claim if there's that much damage. If I don't have time stamped before pictures to prove, as silly as it is, we have to prove that that wasn't like that before the storm. And so you'd never know when they're going to pop up these opportunities to really use one of those relationships. But that's why you do it. You build those relationships with people so that you can help them and they can help you, and that's what is operating a business.
Yeah, and the last two support vendors that I think we should mention to our listeners, one is a handyman. You've got to find that handyman that's going to be able to do those small little things as they occur. Couple of examples. Most recently, we had the door enclosure on an outside screen door break. Handyman came in and took care of that. Sliding glass door, the latch broke. Had to come in and fix that. Some of the walls take some dings based on guests going up the stairs with luggage. Had to paint that. So it's those nuisance little things that will build up over time if you don't have a handyman stay on top of it. So finding a good handyman that can make regular visits to do general repair and maintenance, they can really keep your property looking great and goes a long way.
And a handyman is a great conduit for other vendors, right? I mean, if you're a handyman, most handymen and women I know, they'll tell you they can do everything. And I think that's again just making sure you clearly define what their focus is, and it's not necessarily. Oh, I can do it all. I can do electrical. I can do plumbing. No, no, there's experts for that. A handyman is more of those general jobs that if you lived in the home, you might go to Home Depot and do it yourself, but you're managing a business, you're managing a vacation rental. So you need to have a professional that's capable of fixing any issues quickly, efficiently, and does a solid job. The handyman that I know specifically, just amazing. But again, it's a constant communication. It's I'll bounce questions off of them. Hey, this one of the corners is getting dinged up in our entryway. What do you recommend here? And I expect a couple options, obviously. And he'll shoot it back. Here's a couple things we can do, Tim. We can do this, we can do that, or we can just uh, we can install a guard, we can paint the wall, uh, there's a couple opportunities to improve this area so it limits its damage. But a handyman is just such a great resource to have for just general questions about your space.
So, Tim, if we recap for our listeners, we've gone through a lot of different vendors. It really comes down to build your local support team that can take care of, maintain your home while you're managing from afar. First, we talked about a pool company, a company that can come in and clean your pool weekly. It's great also if the pool company you select has the ability to do repairs on things like your pool pump, your pool heater, and screen enclosure. If they can't, use that pool company for a resource. Again, leverage your relationships, leverage your resources. Number two, HVAC. Got to make sure that air conditioning and heater working all the time. And when it doesn't, you've got a vendor that will respond quickly to take care of your guest. Plumber, same thing. You've got to do some annual preventative maintenance on your hot water heater and then have somebody on call for repairs when necessary. Pest control, snow removal. If you're in the climates where you have snow, someone's got to take care of the snow on the driveways and the sidewalks. You want to have a great handyman. If your HOA doesn't take care of your landscaping, got to find a good landscaper that will take care of that as well. And then where we started this whole conversation, kind of the heart and soul of this industry, is a great cleaning team. And the last thing I would mention is, and Tim, you've touched on this, making sure that the insurance company you select on the front end isn't just a low cost provider, but someone who's going to support you through the long term ownership of your home. And then, of course, the time stamped photos. When you buy the home, it's always good to take those time stamped photos, update them a couple times a year, always have that record and available. So that's a good list to start with. I think we'll go into a lot more going forward, but I think one of the episodes, Tim, that we touched on early is all of these vendors represent a cost. Make sure when you're building your financial model that you model these things accordingly so that your model is capturing all the costs and you're able to really assess the profitability of your home and where you can make improvements on that model.
And that going back to that business piece of it with the business model and understanding your HOA, you touched on it. Understand what's included in your HOA very clearly. Spend the time understanding your insurance policy, because those things will each of those will come into play to some extent in terms of which vendors you need, which vendors maybe you don't need as much. I think of I have a townhome we're overseeing and working with right now, and they're one of four units in sort of the block of units. What's the status of their roof? What's the status of their AC? Just make sure you understand the HOA, what's included. So many include landscaping, but that's just another relationship, and that's another piece of it you have to manage, because not all HOAs do great with maintenance and upkeep on landscaping. Maybe they need a little focused attention from you in terms of making sure that they're living up to what's included in their HOA, because that just goes back to, you don't want to spend money on services that should be included and maybe aren't being executed. So be knowledgeable of that.
Well, and when I first thought about using a property manager, it's because I thought all of this building your
Right?
team, I thought it was overwhelming. And I thought,
Yeah.
you know what? I can't do it. Well, you know what? You can. And that's what this podcast, that's what Tim and I are here for. We're here to help you build both the confidence and the competence to self manage your property. None of this is hard. You really have to think about it as if you have a home or even if you rent a home, you've got to have these vendors at your personal property. It's no different for your vacation rental business. You just have to find these vendors. It does take a little time on the front end, but everybody listening can do it. It's not hard, takes a little time on the front end, but once you get that team built, they are your heart and soul. They are your support team that will help you take care of your business. And that little bit of time you invested on the front end to set up your team, that's 25% more in your pocket on your bottom line because you took the initiative to do it yourself. That's what we're here for. We're here to support you so that you feel very confident in setting this support team up for yourselves.
That's it. So this is a great summary of the vendors you need to be thinking about, and the importance of building those relationships and those lines of communication up to ensure that you're running your business with the right service providers. And so I think from there, another great episode. Hopefully, this is helpful to you as you start to navigate the world of short term vacation rentals. If you are enjoying the content, if you enjoy the show, please consider liking and subscribing to the podcast, because that'll just help us spread the word and be able to really share our message to more people looking to self manage their property successfully and with the confidence necessary to do it the right way for a long time. So until our next episode, thanks everyone. Take care. Have a great day. See you soon.